In the quiet town of Miryang, South Korea, a chilling tale of exploitation and injustice unfolded in 2003.
피해 여학생들은 정신적인 고통을 이기지 못해 자살을 기도하거나 육체적 후유증으로 산부인과 치료를 받고 있습니다.
A 14-year-old girl, Choi, seeking solace in the virtual world, fell prey to a group of boys who would forever alter her life. The Miryang Group Assault case would unravel as a disturbing story of abuse, systemic failure, and the enduring consequences of a crime that shook the nation. How could such a horrific event occur in a seemingly peaceful community? Why did the authorities fail to protect Choi? And what justice remains for the victims? Join me as we delve into this haunting narrative, exploring the events, investigation, and aftermath that sparked national outrage. In the summer of 2003, in the tranquil town of Miryang, South Korea, a 14-year-old girl named Choi was navigating the challenges and excitement of adolescence. Like many teenagers, Choi was curious about the world around her and eager to form meaningful connections with others. She spent much of her free time browsing the internet, exploring online communities and forums where she could meet new people and make friends. It was during one of these online excursions that Choi met a boy named Park. Their initial encounter was likely casual, perhaps a chance conversation in a chat room or online forum. However, as they continued to talk, Choi found herself drawn to Park's charming and empathetic nature. As Choi and Park's online conversations became more regular, their connection deepened. They shared stories, thoughts, and feelings, forging a bond that transcended geographical boundaries. January 2004 arrived, a year after Choi first met Park online. The day of their meetup finally came and Choi was excited. She arrived at the agreed location and everything seemed normal. Park greeted her warmly and they began talking. But as they conversed, subtle red flags emerged. Park's demeanor shifted and his words took on a sinister tone. Choi's unease grew, and the situation took a drastic turn. Her excitement transformed into dread, and she realized she was trapped in a nightmare. Without warning, Park struck Choi from behind, knocking her unconscious. Unbeknownst to Choi, Park wasn't alone. 11 boys around his age emerged from the shadows. They were members of the notorious Miryang Group, a gang infamous for criminal activities and bad behavior. As Choi lay helpless, the group's true intentions became clear. Park's friendly facade had been a ruse, luring Choi into a trap. The Miryang Group's reputation preceded them, striking fear into the hearts of locals. Choi's fate now rested in the hands of these ruthless individuals, their sinister plans unfolding. Choi's world shattered as she regained consciousness. She found herself in a desolate, secluded location, surrounded by the same boys who had attacked her. The unimaginable happened. Each boy took turns violating Choi, treating her like an object for their twisted desires. The torment continued relentlessly, with physical and emotional abuse inflicted upon her. Choi's pleas fell on deaf ears. Her cries were drowned out by their laughter. Days blurred into weeks. The boys forced her to perform unspeakable acts, capturing every moment on camera. The boys wielded the recording as a weapon, threatening to disseminate it online if she dared speak out. The prospect of public shame and humiliation silenced Choi, rendering her powerless. The boys' actions were calculated and designed to destroy Choi's will. They manipulated her, eroding her confidence and autonomy. Choi became a shadow of her former self, trapped in a living nightmare from which she couldn't awaken. For 365 agonizing days, Choi endured unimaginable torment. The Miryang Group exploited her as their personal plaything, violating her in public spaces, playgrounds, classrooms, and ravaging her soul with each assault. Rape was only the beginning. They subjected her to gruesome sexual torture, employing objects that inflicted crippling damage and left her body racked with chronic pain. The group's brutality knew no bounds. They beat her at whim, leveraging violence to assert dominance and annihilate her identity. Choi's world became a never-ending nightmare, a desolate landscape of fear, pain, and hopelessness. Choi endured a prolonged and devastating ordeal at the hands of a ruthless high school gang. Over 11 agonizing months, she was repeatedly assaulted by groups of 3 to 24 boys, with up to 10 assaults per incident. Shockingly, at least 44 boys were involved in these heinous crimes. The gang's cruelty reached new depths when they coerced Choi into bringing her innocent 13-year-old sister and 16-year-old cousin into the same nightmarish situation. These young victims were also brutally assaulted and beaten, suffering unimaginable physical and emotional trauma. To further compound Choi's suffering, the boys uploaded videos online, intentionally spreading her humiliation and suffering for their own twisted entertainment. Choi's silence wasn't surprising, given her home life. Her father's alcoholism and abuse had driven her mother away, leaving Choi vulnerable. The father's daily beatings made Choi feel trapped and helpless. With no supportive family to turn to, Choi endured the gang's brutality alone. Her father's actions had already shattered her trust. Choi's courageous decision to join the school was met with staggering resistance. No institution would accept a victim, forcing her to confront the harsh reality of societal stigma. School after school rejected Choi, their doors slamming shut in unison. The message was clear. Her experience, her trauma, and her presence were unwanted. Undeterred, Choi persisted. Finally, one school offered a glimmer of hope, a chance to rediscover her voice and rebuild her future. But the respite was short-lived. The parents of the boys who had assaulted Choi began to harass her during school hours, their malicious actions aimed at intimidating and silencing her. They would appear unexpectedly, their presence a constant reminder of Choi's ordeal. Fearing for her safety and well-being, Choi made the heartbreaking decision to leave school once again. Her education, her sanctuary, had been transformed into a battleground. The police investigation into Choi's case was shockingly insensitive. In a disturbing display of disregard for her well-being, authorities conducted a face-to-face interrogation, forcing Choi to confront her attackers in the same room. The officer's questioning was appallingly intrusive, asking Choi, "Did he insert it in you or not?" in the suspect's presence. This traumatic experience pushed Choi to the brink, requiring immediate psychiatric hospitalization. The investigation's harmful impact was compounded when authorities asked Choi's sister an outrageous question. Did she try to seduce them? In the hospital, Choi's suffering continued as she faced another betrayal from those who should have been her allies. Her father, who should have been a source of support and protection, was complicit in her ongoing victimization. He allowed the parents of the boys who had abused Choi to visit her in the hospital. These visits were not meant to offer comfort or support, but were part of a disturbing scheme to further exploit Choi. The parents pressured her into signing a contract that shifted the entire blame for the abuse onto her. Choi's father agreed to the terms of this contract and accepted a substantial sum of money from the perpetrators' families. Instead of using this money to provide for Choi's medical treatment and support her recovery, he pocketed it. Despite this betrayal, there was a glimmer of justice when Choi's sister's aunt took a stand and reported the abuse to the police. In the wake of public protests and outcry from the victims' families, 3 of the boys involved in the abuse were arrested. The investigation did not stop there. 9 more students were also taken into custody as the scope of the abuse became clearer. However, the legal progress was met with further intimidation. The families of the perpetrators, numbering 29 in total, did not take these arrests quietly. They began threatening the victims, warning them to be cautious and to watch their backs. In a television interview, a parent of one of the offenders made a controversial statement. "Why should we feel sorry for the victim's family? What about our own suffering? Who can resist temptation? If girls are trying to seduce boys, their parents should have taught them how to behave to prevent situations like this from happening." The Miryang Group Assault case was initially reported on December 7, 2004. It sparked widespread outrage and criticism from the public. The details of the abuse, coupled with the apparent inadequacy of the legal response, led to a flood of internet posts condemning the state of the education system and demanding severe punishment for the perpetrators. The reports revealed that despite the involvement of 44 individuals in the case, only 3 arrest warrants had been issued. This disparity between the number of perpetrators and the number of arrests drew fierce criticism from netizens, who demanded that all those involved be held accountable. The public outcry against the police grew intense as more people took to online platforms to voice their frustration. Fast forward to 2024, and the case resurfaced with renewed fervor when a YouTuber revealed the identities of some of the individuals involved in the assault. This revelation set off a chain reaction among other YouTubers and online activists, who began to uncover and expose more names linked to the scandal. Among those revealed were Park, a restaurant owner who had managed to establish a stable life and family, and Shin, who had lost his job in car sales as a result of the scandal. The exposure of these individuals, who had previously managed to evade public scrutiny, drew significant attention and condemnation. Public outrage intensified as it became known that some of these individuals, now in their late 30s, had managed to lead relatively normal lives despite their involvement in the heinous crimes. The fact that they had evaded justice for so many years, continuing to live comfortably with stable careers and families, added fuel to the growing anger. The resurfacing of the case highlighted a perceived failure of the justice system to adequately address and resolve the abuse, leading to calls for renewed investigations and accountability. Following the incident, Choi, the victim, endured relentless discrimination and subsequently disappeared from public view. This tragic outcome marks the conclusion of the case, where some perpetrators continue to live freely, while Choi and other victims remain hidden, struggling with lifelong trauma. Thank you for watching. Remember, justice delayed is justice denied. Let's keep pushing for accountability and support for survivors like Choi. Share this video, spread awareness, and demand change.